Hi guys! So the last video, oh my gosh, you guys, you were amazing. Thank you so much for all your support, your likes, your comments, your shares, your subs. I really appreciate all of them. You asked for another doll video, you got another doll video.
You wanted cake, you got cake. Now eat it!
Today's video is going to be a little bit of a smaller project. And the reason that I did that is because I actually have a really big project in mind. And it's going to take me some time. So I didn't want to make you guys wait months and months and months for another doll video. So I figure I'll just do some small projects while I'm working on this big project, which you're going to see a sneak peek of in this video. So yeah, so we're doing a smaller project today, which it did not turn out to be a small project. So you would think after the success of the last video and knowing that a lot of people are waiting for more doll content, that I would, stick to something safe, stick to what I know, but that's not what I'm doing. No. What I am doing is doing something I've never done before. Yeah. So yeah, we're doing a smaller project today, which is a pair of boots for my girl, Zooey Electra. Gorgeous. A lot of people were hoping that she would get some sort of boot since she has that jacket that looks very much like an astronaut jacket. They were hoping that she would have matching boots, which when I heard that, I was like, yes, she does need boots, doesn't she? I immediately thought of moon boots. To me, they look like astronaut boots. So I thought that they would make a perfect inspiration for Zooey's boots. So we're gonna make her some space boots. So yeah, I've never made shoes. Never made shoes for a doll, never made shoes for a human. And do you think that I look anything up to make these shoes? No, I didn't look anything up to make these shoes. So I made the boots. I'm going to show them to you, and I'm going to show you how I made them. Are they perfect? No, not at all. But are they boots? Yes. Yes, they are. They are boots. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to VoiceOver Sarah. Thanks, Sarah. VoiceOver Sarah here. This isn't even plugged in. I just like the way it looks. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is go shopping. I wear my cute boots for you guys. They kind of make me feel like a go-go dancer. And here I begin my search for the perfect off-white fabric. I wanted the boots to match Zooey's jacket, which isn't a pure white. So I brought the jacket to make sure I could color match. I also wanted a fabric that had a similar texture to Zooey's jacket. Because of this, I thought that denim would be a really good option, and I found one that I was really happy with. I also wanted to pick up some ribbon to add some detail to the boots, and this was the smallest width that they had. I also made a stop at Target, as one does when one is near a Target, and I checked out their doll section, and I ended up picking up my next victim for my next project, the really big project. So stay tuned for that. Okay, next that brings us to construction. I started by tracing the doll's leg onto a piece of paper. The moon boots in real life actually have a seam going down the center front, so that meant that I could just trace the profile of the boot. I really wanted them to be big and exaggerated and hit just about the knee. I then added seam allowance and I cut out the pattern. So I used this pattern to cut out 2 pieces of fabric, one for each side, and then I was able to sew them down the middle. Then I folded it inside out, put it on the doll, and began stuffing with fluff. I decided that this wasn't big enough, so I went back and adjusted my pattern. I made another mock-up and I tested it out with the new ribbon. I decided I wanted to create a sole like the real moon boot, so I used the bottom of the mock-up boot to trace the sole shape. I did this on cardboard and then I cut out the shape and covered with masking tape because it was pretty much the same color as the actual sole. Here I made my final pattern and I was finally ready to cut into the real fabric. So I need to cut out 4 pieces of this pattern total. The reason I'm doing this is to create a lining on the inside to contain the fluff. So for the final iteration of the boot, I wasn't actually quite sure how I was going to assemble everything together. But about 5 a.m. one morning, I woke up and I knew exactly how I was going to do it. So I got up right then and there and I wrote everything down, knowing I had the perfect plan. So when it finally came time to put this plan into action, I grabbed my notebook. Okay, first step, sew down the front seam. Done. Step 2. What am I saying? So it turns out that I am not the most cognizant at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I had a really hard time understanding what I was trying to say in my notes. What did I mean? Knowing I had the perfect plan. After some deciphering, I figured out my instructions and I was back on track. Next, I sewed the tops of the front half and the back half together, face to face. Then flip over the fabric so that the face fabric is on the outside, but first, make sure to iron your seams open. When I pushed out the toes, the inner layer should just fit right into the outside layer. Do you have anything to add? Nicely said. Yeah, nicely said. Good job. Yeah, good job. Originally, I was going to use the ribbon to create the band with the logo. I decided that I wanted to try to match the holographic stripes on Zooey's jacket. So I ran back to Joann's and got myself some holographic fabric. To create the logo, I also bought an oil-based paint pen. Oil-based paint pen. Oil-based paint pen. And I decided that I wanted it to be a little bit narrower than the white ribbon, so I could sew the holographic on top of the ribbon, and the ribbon would give it a nice clean edge. Then came the moment to hand draw the logo, which became increasingly difficult now that I made the width of the holographic so small. I also recommend painting the logo on that strip after you sew it down. With my first boot, I had painted it before I sewed the strip down, and even though I double checked and double checked and double checked, it did not end up center. So I wanted there to be an elastic drawstring at the top of the boot like the Real Moon boots. I highly recommend placing the elastic in between the 2 layers of fabric before you sew your pocket for it. This will make it so much easier. If you do it this way, all you need to do is take a seam ripper and rip out a few seams at the very top of the boot and pull out your elastic and cut it in half. I did not do this with my first boot, so I ended up having to cram that elastic into that tiny microscopic pocket, and it was difficult. Now you can fold in half inside out and sew that back seam. Then just flip it inside out and you have your front seam, your back seam, and your top seam all finished. At that point, I started stuffing the boot with the fluff in between the 2 fabric layers. And where did I get this stuffing, you may ask? Well, our dogs are completely destructive when it comes to toys. So I have a graveyard of dog toys in my closet, and I figured I might as well use some of the stuffing from these toys that we can't play with anymore. So I just used stuffing from a damaged toy. I also put the boots on the doll while I was stuffing them, just to make sure there would be enough room for her leg. And I stuffed these boots a lot. They actually turned out way bigger than I anticipated. Again, I made another pair of soles that I made from a thick cardboard shipping box. And I covered them with a couple layers of masking tape. After some trial and error, I figured out I needed to create a flat bottom for the boot for the sole to properly stick to. So I ended up tracing the sole onto a piece of fabric and then sewing that onto the bottom of the boot. It didn't matter that the seams were visible because they were going to be covered up. Then I glued on the sole, pressing and holding them in place for a few minutes. There were some gaps between the sole and the boot, but again, it didn't quite matter because they were going to be covered up. I tried to stuff the second boot as similarly as I did to the first boot, but there definitely were some differences. I added the logo to the second boot, centered this time. I covered the whole bottom of the boot with the ribbon, leaving only a little bit of the sole peeping out, and then sewed it into place. I then decided to cover the back seam with the ribbon, leaving a little loop at the very top, creating a pull tab, and then I sewed everything down in place by hand. I got tiny little jewelry rings to keep the laces in place, and I used sewing pins to decide where to place them on the boot. And then I hand sewed them, and I tried to make it as invisible as I could. I then laced up the boots with more elastic, and I tied them in the back, similar to an actual moon boot. I also knotted the jewelry rings onto the ends of all the elastics to give it a nice finished look. And these are our final boots. And then I had a horrifying thought. What if these boots didn't fit Zooey? What if for some odd and unexplainable reason, these boots simply would not go on Zooey's feet? I knew I had to catch this potential life-altering moment on camera.
We're safe on live.
Houston, we have liftoff. All right, guys, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, here she is. Ooh, here are the custom-made boots for Miss Zooey Electra. I think they came out really, really good, especially considering not knowing what I was doing. They're definitely not perfect. They're definitely sisters, not twins, like my eyebrows. maybe distant cousins. They're in the family. They're in the family somewhere along the bloodline. So these were definitely a challenge. I don't want to make pair of shoes for a long time, if ever, because yeah, these were much more difficult than I anticipated. I was like, it's just gonna be like making like a plushie, you know, like just shoving some fluff into some fabric. It can't be that difficult, but it did turn out to be a challenge. And also, if you guys have any suggestions on how to straighten her hair, I did wash it out, I combed it, and I did a little bit of flat ironing, just a little bit. I was worried that I would melt the tinsel, so I didn't go too hard on it. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on how to make her hair like straight, like pin straight, that's what I'm looking for. Pin straight. I would sincerely appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching this video. If you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Like I said, thank you so much for all the support on the last video. It was just unbelievable. So thank you guys so much. That was amazing. Thank you. And just so you know, I'm also on Instagram under the same username, Sarah Design Stuff, and I'm going to be posting more doll content on there. I already have a few pictures of outfits that I haven't shown on YouTube, so if you want to check them out, again, that's on my Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for all your support, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!